Let's get a divorce. Ethan's voice rang out, cold as ice. He stood there under the blazing sunset, his face showing no trace of emotion, as if 3 years of marriage, 3 years of my wholehearted devotion, had been nothing but a fleeting dream, not worth a backward glance. But he didn't know that I, Emily, had been reborn. In my previous life, I foolishly believed his words and signed the fake divorce papers he handed me. He said it was for me and our daughter, for a better home, for temporary privileges he granted. I believed him. I sacrificed. I risked my life to pull him back from the brink of death. I sold my family's heirloom bracelet to save his life. And in return, I got one cold sentence. We were already divorced. He held the hand of his first love and walked right past me, leaving me and my daughter in shame and agony. But this time, everything would be different. I looked straight into Ethan's eyes, the corner of my mouth lifting in a bitter smile. Fine, Ethan. Divorce it is. My tone was calm, but inside a fire raged. This wasn't surrender, it was a declaration of war. Ethan, in this life, I will never let you turn me into a laughingstock again. When we walked out of the military compound, Ethan's strides were quick, with no thought of waiting for me. I carried my daughter in my arms, following behind, feeling like something unnecessary. The familiar setting, the familiar man. Everything was exactly the same as my previous life. The harsh sunlight stung my eyes and I lowered my head. Mom, my daughter asked softly, sweetly, why is Dad walking so fast? I stroked her hair and answered gently, Daddy has something urgent to do. Let's not bother him, okay? Ethan's steps faltered for just a moment, but he didn't turn around. I knew he had heard, but he didn't care. In my past life, I had held my daughter just like this, anxiously trailing behind him. Back then, I was still naive, thinking Ethan was just bad at expressing his feelings, believing that in his heart he still cared for us. Until the day he brought her, Samantha, the beauty of the performing troupe, into my world. That was when I realized just how wrong I had been. Nestled in Ethan's arms, Samantha looked at me with a sweet, affected smile. Sister-in-law. Oh no, I guess I should call you comrade now. Thank you for giving Ethan up to me. From start to finish, Ethan didn't look at me once. He only left me with one cold, indifferent sentence. We're already divorced. Don't bother me again. Bother him. I had given him the best years of my youth, poured every ounce of my love into him, and in the end, I was branded a nuisance. How laughable. And how pitiful. At the Civil Affairs office, the clerk asked, Do you two confirm you want a divorce? Ethan pulled 2 packs of Dakshianmen cigarettes from his pocket and handed them over, speaking in a tone that showed familiarity. Yes, we voluntarily agree to divorce. Clearly the clerk knew him, because he accepted the cigarettes and quickly finished the paperwork for us. The moment I held the divorce certificate in my hand, I noticed the corner of Ethan's lips curve faintly, almost a smile. He thought he was finally free, that he could now openly stand beside the first love of his dreams. I smiled as well. I lifted my head, meeting Ethan's probing gaze, and enunciated each word clearly. Congratulations, Captain Ethan. You got what you wanted. For once, Ethan froze. Perhaps he hadn't expected me to be this calm. In the past, even a trace of coldness from him would have me in tears, making scenes that never ended. But today I didn't cry, and I didn't make a fuss. I even smiled at him. Ethan's brows furrowed as if displeased. What do you mean? He asked. Holding my daughter close, I stepped back. I widened the distance between us. There was no hidden meaning. It was exactly what I said. Calmly, I told him, Captain Ethan, we're divorced now. From here on, we go our separate ways. The river and the well don't interfere with each other. I wish you a bright future, and I ask that you don't come to disturb the lives of me and my daughter again. Without another glance at him, I turned and carried my daughter away. Behind me came Ethan's startled voice. Where are you going? I didn't turn back. I only waved my hand lightly. Where? Somewhere without you, where I can start my new life. Ethan, in this lifetime I will never love you again. Stay with your white moonlight, and live out the rest of your days. My daughter, Lily, nestled her head into my shoulder, her tiny hand clutching the hem of my blouse. Mom, aren't we going home with Dad anymore? My heart tightened. I kissed her forehead gently and whispered, Lily, sweetheart, we'll go to a new home, a place with just you and me. Holding my daughter, I didn't look back. I headed straight for the row of parked cars. In my last life, after the divorce papers were finalized, I had nowhere to go. It was Ethan who, with eyes full of condescension, arranged for me and my child to live in a damp, dark storage room in the military family housing compound. He had said, "Just make do for now. Once we're assigned a new house, you can move in." I endured it for the sake of that vague promise. I endured the neighbors' whispers. I endured the damp that made Lily fall sick. But reborn into this life, I would never be so foolish again. Just as I thought this, a military jeep screeched to a halt beside me. The door swung open, and Ethan, his face dark as stone, stepped out and seized my arm. "Haven't you had enough?" His voice was low and sharp with irritation. "Isn't this what you wanted? Get in the car, I'll take you home." Home? To that cold, lifeless house that was never truly mine? Or back to the rotten storage room he once tossed me into like alms? I yanked my arm free and glared at him, my eyes icy. "Captain Ethan, have some self-respect. We're divorced now. By what right do you lay hands on me?" The words "Captain Ethan" made his eyes flicker with something dangerous. He had grown used to me calling him softly by his name, Ethan. Clearly he couldn't adapt to this change. "Emily, don't push your luck," he ground out, his voice dropping even lower, as if afraid passers-by might hear. "The divorce was just for show. Did you forget it was for the house?" I didn't forget. I met his gaze squarely, each word firm and distinct. "But I regret it now. I don't need that house, and I don't need you either. This marriage is over. Divorce means divorce. From now on, you walk your path, and I'll cross my own bridge." Ethan's eyes widened with disbelief. His brows furrowed tightly as he stared at me, as if searching for a crack in my composure. "You're not like this," he muttered. I couldn't tell if he was speaking to me or denying himself. In his eyes, Emily was supposed to be obedient, docile, never resisting, never meeting him with this cold, distant gaze. I curled my lips into a mocking smile. "People change. You're the one who taught me that." Ethan's expression faltered, perhaps recalling Samantha, perhaps afraid of what I carried in my heart. Lily whimpered softly against my shoulder, frightened by the tense atmosphere. I patted her back gently and soothed her. "Don't be scared, Lily. Mommy's here." I turned, ready to leave, but Ethan once again blocked my way. Ethan's patience had completely run out. "You just want to make a scene, don't you? Fine, I'll let you make a scene. But first you're coming back to the family housing with me. A regimental commander's wife, freshly divorced and wandering the streets. What kind of disgrace is that?" "I'm your ex-wife," I replied coolly. "What people think is their business. It has nothing to do with me and even less to do with you." "Or are you worried that your confidant might see this and misunderstand?" Ethan's face shifted from pale to livid, a mixture of fury and confusion. He couldn't understand why I had changed so suddenly. All the better. Let him guess. Let him taste the same bewilderment and helplessness I once endured. "Get in the car." He finally lost all patience and roared, raising his hand to grab me. Just then, a voice rang out. "Well, isn't this Comrade Emily? What a coincidence." Both Ethan and I turned our heads at the same time. A man in a worn but neatly pressed cadre uniform approached with a smile. It was Mark Harris, the neighborhood committee director. In my previous life, we had no connection. But in this life, he was destined to be my benefactor. Mark's gaze swept over Ethan's hand clutching my arm, and his smile faltered slightly. "Captain Ethan, what's going on here?" As if burned, Ethan instantly released me, his face stiff. "Nothing." I seized the moment, stepping quickly toward Mark and offering him a grateful smile. "Director Harris, this is perfect timing. I was just about to find you. My daughter and I need a temporary residence permit. Could you help us with that?" Mark blinked, taken aback for a second, then quickly recovered. "Of course, that's my duty. But you and Captain Ethan..." I lowered my eyes, letting sorrow show plainly on my face. "We just got divorced." Mark's gentle smile froze halfway. He looked at me, then at Ethan, his expression filled with astonishment. As a neighborhood director, he had seen every kind of domestic dispute, but a divorce involving a regimental commander, this was a scandal. "Divorced?" he repeated, clearly unwilling to believe it. He turned to Ethan. "Captain Ethan, you can't be serious." Before I could speak, Ethan rushed to answer. Forcing a strained smile uglier than tears, he said, "Director Harris, you've misunderstood. My wife, no, my ex-wife, she's just upset. It's just a husband and wife quarrel." He was still clinging to his act, trying to maintain the perfect facade he had worn for years, convinced that one lie could erase everything, as though nothing had happened. His eyes darted toward me, sharp with warning, signaling me to play along. In my past life, a single look like that would have been enough to make me lower my head, admit fault, and obediently follow him back into that cocoon of lies he had spun around me. But in this life, all I felt was cold disgust. I tightened my hold on Lily, turned my gaze to Mark, and spoke with just the right tremor of hurt and grievance in my voice. "Director Harris, it's not a quarrel. I still have the divorce papers in my pocket. We just had them stamped. He says I'm upset only because I refused to live in the damp, moldy storage room he arranged for us after the divorce." I lowered my voice further, my eyes dropping to the innocent little face sleeping in my arms. "Lily is still so young and her health is fragile. I couldn't let my daughter live in such misery." Every word I spoke was aimed straight at the heart. I was no longer the weak and submissive Emily I had been in my past life. I understood now that in this era, public opinion was a weapon. A decorated soldier, fresh from a divorce, throwing his wife and child into a damp storage room. If that image spread, it would be enough to make Ethan lose face completely. Sure enough, Mark Harris's expression darkened. He was a man of integrity, and the sharp dissatisfaction in his gaze was obvious as he looked at Ethan. "Captain Ethan, is what Comrade Emily said true?" Ethan's face turned ashen. I had driven him into a corner. He couldn't admit it. If he did, his reputation would collapse. But he also couldn't deny it entirely, because I stood right there as a living witness. "That was only temporary," he stammered, his usual composure scattered to the wind. "I was waiting until we were assigned a new house. Then—" I let out a quiet laugh tinged with mockery. "Director Harris, perhaps you don't know. This divorce was actually proposed by Captain Ethan himself. He said it would be a fake divorce so that we could qualify as a difficult family and get a bigger, better house more easily. But once the divorce is done, who can say who the house will truly belong to?" I didn't mention Samantha. It wasn't time for that yet, but I had already planted the seed of suspicion. Mark Harris wasn't a fool. He immediately caught the deeper meaning in my words. His look of mere dissatisfaction hardened into open contempt, unhidden as he turned to Ethan. "Captain Ethan," he said coldly, dropping even the courtesy of formality. "You're a soldier. How could you do such a thing? This is exploiting loopholes in policy. It's irresponsibility toward your wife and child." Ethan's face flushed scarlet, burning hot. He was a proud man, a rising star in the military. He had never been scolded so directly, so publicly. He choked on his words, unable to respond, glaring at me instead, his eyes as if he wanted to devour me whole. But I wasn't afraid. I met his gaze head-on, and inside me rose a rush of satisfaction. "Ethan, this is only the beginning. The humiliation you're feeling right now isn't even a fraction of the agony I endured in my last life." I turned to Mark, letting my eyes redden at just the right moment. "Director Harris, I don't need a house and I don't want anything from him anymore. I just want to live peacefully with my daughter. Could you help me find a place to stay? Something small is fine. I can pay rent." Mark let out a sigh, the scales in his heart clearly tipping fully toward me, the weaker side. "Comrade Emily, don't worry. That's my responsibility. Behind the administrative office there's a small yard that's currently vacant. It isn't big, but it's clean, and it has its own space. You and your daughter can move in for now." My heart pounded wildly. It was better than I ever imagined. Thank you so much, Director Harris." The gratitude came from the very bottom of my heart. It was like rain falling in a long drought. Suddenly Ethan roared, his voice full of panic and fury. "You can't go there. Emily, you have to come back with me to the family quarters." At last he realized I was serious, that I truly meant to leave him, using a way he had never imagined, escaping his control completely. In his eyes now there wasn't only anger, there was also an emotion even he hadn't recognized before. Fear. The fear of losing something he had always believed, without question, belonged to him. How laughable. What right did he have to say no? I didn't even spare him a glance. I gave Director Harris a heartfelt thank you. "You've really gone out of your way for us. My daughter and I are deeply grateful." "Emily." Ethan stepped forward as if to grab me. His eyes at that moment were like those of a wounded beast, ready to tear into me. Mark Harris immediately moved to stand in front of me, his face cold. Captain Ethan, what do you think you're doing? In the middle of the street, are you planning to lay hands on a female comrade who just got divorced? Ethan's chest rose and fell sharply, his eyes bloodshot. He glared at me with a look no longer made up of just anger. It carried humiliation, confusion, and a trace of chaos he himself might not even recognize. He couldn't understand. He couldn't understand how the woman who once obeyed his every word, who once saw him as her whole world, could in just one night become so distant, so unfamiliar. Fine. Very fine. Ethan's teeth ground audibly, every word dripping like venom. Emily, remember this day. You'd better not regret it. Without waiting for a reply, he suddenly spun around, almost fleeing as he yanked open the Jeep door. The engine roared, and the vehicle sped off, leaving behind a cloud of dust and the heavy stench of gasoline. As Ethan's car disappeared, I clutched Lily a little tighter. My body trembled slightly, not from fear but from exhilaration. I had won. Comrade Emily, don't worry, Mark said gently, pulling me back to the present. As long as we're here, he won't dare do anything to you. Come on, let me take you and your daughter to see the place. I nodded and followed him, walking in the opposite direction of the military compound. The house behind the neighborhood office was even better than I imagined. Pushing open a small wooden gate revealed a neat cement courtyard. In one corner stood a grape trellis. It was winter now, only bare branches remained, but I could already picture it in summer, lush and full of shade. The house itself wasn't big. One main room, a smaller side room, and a little kitchen with a stove for cooking. Modest, but complete. Most importantly, the place was peaceful. No whispering neighbors, no familiar faces to reopen old wounds. This used to be the neighborhood storage shed, Mark explained apologetically. It was only cleared out recently. It's a bit simple, but please make do for now. No, it's not simple at all, I quickly answered, my nose stinging. Director Harris, this is so much better than I ever imagined. You truly are a great benefactor to me and my daughter. Mark waved off my words with a smile, gave a few more reminders, then left. In the courtyard, only Lily and I remained. Mom, is this our new home? She asked, peeking out from my arms, looking curiously around. Yes, I said, setting her down and crouching to meet her eyes. Do you like it here? She nodded vigorously, then pointed her tiny hand at the withered grape trellis. Mom, in the spring will it sprout again? My heart felt as though something soft had brushed against it. Yes, when spring comes, it will sprout. I smiled faintly. Just like us. The future for you and me, Lily, will sprout and grow too. The first thing I did after settling in was go to the cooperative. I still had some money left, enough for us to get by for a while. I bought rice, flour, and even treated us to a small piece of meat. Back at the courtyard, I started a fire and prepared to cook. As I was busy with my hands, a knock sounded on the wooden gate. Sharp, deliberate raps. Thinking it was Director Harris, I quickly wiped my hands and went to open the door. But standing outside was the very person I least wanted to see. It was Ethan. He had changed into civilian clothes, though his expression was just as grim. In his hand he carried a mesh bag filled with fruit and several cans of food. When he saw me, his lips moved as though he wanted to say something. I didn't give him the chance. Why are you here? I blocked the doorway, my voice like ice. Captain Ethan. I thought I made myself perfectly clear earlier today. Perhaps he hadn't expected me to be so resolute. He stood there for a moment, then awkwardly thrust the bag of food forward. I came to see how you and Lily are doing. This place is lacking in many things. Take these for now. His tone was stiff, forced, the same condescending air of someone bestowing charity from on high. I laughed. No need. Looking him straight in the eye, I enunciated each word. Lily and I don't lack these things. What we lack, you could never give. The hand holding the mesh bag froze midair. For the first time, his handsome face revealed a trace of confusion. What do you mean? If you need something, just say it. I'll buy it. He still didn't understand. He still thought everything in this world could be solved with money and material goods. Looking at him, I suddenly felt a deep pity. Ethan, what I lack is sincerity. A real home, not one built on calculation and pretense. Respect. To be seen as a human being with feelings, not as a chess piece for you to move around as you wish. With every word I spoke, his face grew paler. Had he ever given me those things? Never. What he gave me was cold indifference, demands, and betrayal, pain that had cut straight to my soul. Ethan opened his mouth, his throat working, but no words came. Those eyes that had always been filled with command and authority now held only disorder and helplessness. He wanted to refute me, but there was nothing he could deny. "Take your things back," I said, glancing at the bag in his hand. "Give them to someone who needs them, to Comrade Samantha, perhaps." The moment I said her name, his body jolted as if I had struck a vital point. "What nonsense are you talking about?" he barked reflexively, though guilt rang clear in his voice. "Nonsense." My laugh didn't reach my eyes. "Don't assume everyone's a fool. This whole fake divorce scheme, wasn't it just so you could righteously bring her into the house meant for a difficult family?" The final veil was torn away. There was no room for him to maneuver, no retreat left. Ethan's complexion flickered from white to green, a sight both pitiful and grotesque. He hadn't imagined that the plan he thought watertight would be exposed in every detail. "How did you know?" he stammered, horror filling his eyes. "How did I know?" Of course I knew, because I had already died once. Just then the wooden gate next door creaked open. A woman poked her head out, carrying a wash basin, her curious gaze darting toward us. It was Mrs. Wilson, the well-known busybody of the neighborhood, warm-hearted but unable to resist gossip. The moment she saw Ethan, then me, her eyes lit up as if she had sniffed out a major scandal. "Well, isn't this Emily? And this is..." Ethan's face flushed red, almost the color of raw liver. Above all, he cared about appearances in front of others. He could yell at me, but he could not endure becoming the subject of street gossip. I ignored Mrs. Wilson. My eyes stayed locked on Ethan as I issued my order, crisp and firm. "Guests dismissed. Please leave. If you don't, I'll tell her everything, how you schemed against your own wife and child for another woman. Exploiting government housing policies to snatch up welfare homes, letting the whole neighborhood hear it. That was a blatant threat." Ethan's fists clenched at his sides, knuckles cracking. He glared at me, but in the end, he didn't dare do anything. Under Mrs. Wilson's curious gaze, he nearly ground his teeth to dust, then spun around and hurled the mesh bag to the ground. Fruit scattered across the courtyard. Without looking back, he strode out of the narrow alley. I stood there watching his back until he disappeared around the corner, then finally closed the gate. The courtyard shut out the noise outside. Leaning against the cold wooden door, I let out a long breath. My body was a little tired, but my heart felt lighter than it ever had. I knew I couldn't rely on Director Harris forever, and I couldn't keep living buried in resentment. Money would soon run out. I had to stand on my own feet. But what could I do? The 1980s were indeed a time of opportunity, but for a woman carrying a small child, those chances always came with obstacles and judgmental eyes. I sat on a stool, watching Lily happily play in the courtyard, and my mind drifted. In my past life, I gave up everything for Ethan. My world revolved only around him, around our so-called family, until I was nearly cut off from society. But then, a thought flashed across my mind. Before I died in my last life, I had been gravely ill. I couldn't eat much, yet the one thing that stirred my appetite was a sweet and spicy sauce I made myself. Tangy and hot in perfect balance, it was easy to eat, delicious with noodles or bread. Even the nurse who cared for me had praised it endlessly, joking, "If you ever sold this sauce, you'd make a fortune." Sweet and spicy sauce. The idea burst like fire in my chilled heart. Yes, I would sell sauce. It was the one thing I knew I could do, the one thing that truly belonged to me. Action was the best medicine to heal every wound. The next morning, before the sun had fully risen, I was already up. I carefully counted the money I had left and tucked it away. After kissing Lily's sleeping cheek, I entrusted her to Mrs. Wilson, the nosy but warm-hearted neighbor, and rode off alone on my old bicycle, heading straight to the city's wholesale market. That bicycle had once been my dowry, and now it was my most precious possession. The wholesale market in the 1980s came alive at dawn. The clatter of deliveries, the noisy bargaining, it was like a symphony of life. I didn't wander aimlessly. I knew exactly what I needed. The red chilies had to be the thin-skinned, thick-fleshed kind. The purple garlic had to be pungent and firm. Then there was soybean paste, white sugar, and other spices. All essential. My money wasn't much, so every coin had to be spent with precision. I bargained patiently with the stall owners, shaving off a dime here, 5 cents there, gathering little by little. At last, nearly all my money was gone, but in return I had 2 heavy baskets full of ingredients strapped to either side of my bike. When I got home, Mrs. Wilson was sitting in the courtyard with Lily on her lap, basking in the sun. "Emily, you're back. My goodness, so many chilies. What are you planning?" she asked curiously. I smiled. "Just making some sauce to keep on hand." I said nothing more. Before results, any promises would only be empty talk. I washed my hands, then carefully picked through the red chilies, cleaning each one before leaving them to drain. Together with peeled cloves of purple garlic, I placed everything into the stone mortar. Pound after pound, the mixture broke down, releasing its sharp, fiery fragrance. It was exhausting work, but I didn't feel tired at all. Inside me was a calm steadiness I had never known before. In my past life, these hands had been used only for scrubbing laundry. In my past life, these hands were only for cooking and serving a man. But in this life, I wanted to use them to create a future. For myself and for my daughter. The crushed red chilies, the minced purple garlic, the thick, glossy soybean paste, all of it blended together under my hands. I lit the stove and simmered the mixture slowly over a low flame. Before long, a rich aroma filled the air, sweet, sour, and spicy all at once, drifting out of the small kitchen and spilling into the courtyard. Even Lily, who had been playing outside, couldn't resist. She ran to the doorway, sniffing with her tiny nose. "Mom, it smells so good," I smiled, scooped a bit of the sauce, cooled it, and held it to her lips. Lily cautiously licked a taste, and her eyes lit up instantly. "It's delicious, Mom, it's sweet and spicy." I knew then that I had succeeded. At that moment, a knock came at the gate. Mrs. Wilson had been drawn by the fragrance. "Emily, what on earth are you cooking? The whole alley smells it." She peeked her head in, her face full of curiosity. I didn't hide it. I ladled a little into a small bowl and handed it to her. "Mrs. Wilson, this is chili sauce I made myself. Please try it and give me your opinion." She tasted it with doubt, but within seconds her eyes widened like copper bells. "Heavens, Emily, your skill is amazing. This sauce is even better than what they sell at the cooperative. Really, it's delicious." She praised without restraint, then suddenly lowered her voice as if remembering something. "Oh, right. Let me tell you what I heard this morning at the market. People were talking about your household. Word is, things haven't been going smoothly for Captain Ethan lately. Seems he's been a little too close with that performer Samantha, and someone reported them. You know how strict the unit is about conduct. This could be serious trouble." My hand, stirring the sauce, paused. Retribution already? In my last life, the matter between Ethan and Samantha wasn't exposed until a year after our divorce. By then, he had arranged everything neatly, and his reputation barely took a dent. But in this life, because I had been reborn, the spark had ignited much sooner. Mrs. Wilson kept chattering on. "Tell me, what kind of man does that? You're such a good woman, and he gets mixed up with someone like her." I didn't respond. Silently, I filled the bright red chili sauce into the glass jars I had prepared. One after another, the jars gleamed in the sunlight, dazzling and enticing. Whether Ethan faced trouble or not was no longer my concern. What I needed to focus on was my new life. When Mrs. Wilson left, she insisted on pressing 5 dimes into my hand and carried a small bowl of sauce home, saying she would let her husband try it with his wine. I held the still warm bills, glanced at the 10 jars of sauce neatly lined up before me, and a bigger plan began to form. Waiting passively for people to come by was not a long-term solution. I had to take the initiative. Tomorrow, I would go to the state-owned textile factory on the east side of the city. There, the female workers were many, and their purchasing power was the strongest. The very first money I would earn in my new life would start there, at Textile Factory Number 1, the heart of the city. Thousands of workers labored inside, and when the dismissal bell rang, a black stream of people poured out through the main gate, the scene lively beyond words. That would be my first battlefield. The next afternoon, I rose early and steamed a pot of plump, fragrant white buns. A dozen jars of chili sauce were carefully wrapped in clean cloth and placed in my basket, with the still warm buns hanging from the other side. I rode my old bicycle into the wind. Though there was still an hour before the factory bell, the gate was already buzzing with activity. sunflower seed vendors, old women selling popsicles, the street vendor selling needles and thread, the women hawking sunflower seeds. Everyone had claimed the best spots early. I was a stranger, selling something rare, homemade chili sauce. No one paid me any attention. I chose a quiet corner, spread out a clean cloth, and arranged each jar of bright red sauce neatly on top. Then I brought out my secret weapon, steamed buns. I tore each bun into small pieces, skewered them with bamboo sticks, and brushed on a thin layer of sauce, the sweet and spicy aroma irresistible. Unlike the vendors around me shouting to draw customers, I stood silently behind my cloth. I believed the flavor itself would speak louder than words. Minutes ticked by. Then the factory bell rang, and a flood of workers poured out like a breaking dam. Everyone was in a hurry to get home. Some glanced my way, but no one stopped. My heart began to sink. Had I been too naive? Just as I was about to give up, 3 women in factory uniforms, chatting and laughing, walked past. One of them caught sight of the vivid red sauce and paused. "Oh, what's this? Looks so bright and delicious." My chance had come. I broke into a bright smile and held out a piece of bun with sauce. "Sister, this is sweet chili sauce I made myself. Try it. It's free." Another woman quickly tugged at her arm. "Don't eat random stuff. Who knows if it's clean?" The first hesitated. I rushed to reassure her. "Look, I sterilized all these jars with boiling water. It's very clean. Just try one bite. If it's not good, I won't insist." My gaze was earnest and steady. Finally, she was convinced. She took the piece, cautiously tasted it, and her eyes lit up. "Wow, this is amazing," she exclaimed. "It's tangy and sweet, with just the right hint of spice." She immediately called to her friends. "Come on, you've got to try this. It's really good." With one brave taster, the other 2 no longer hesitated. Each took a piece, and their reactions were just as enthusiastic. "Heavens, this is delicious. This would be incredible tossed with noodles." The first woman grinned and pulled out her money. "Sister, how much for a jar?" "A large jar with the best ingredients, 1 yuan each," I said firmly. It wasn't cheap, but for the quality, it was fair. "Fine, give me one." She handed over a crisp 1 yuan note. My very first sale was complete, and just like that the spark caught. People nearby, who had been watching curiously, saw someone actually buy and enjoy it. Suddenly, they crowded in. "Let me try." "How long does this keep?" "Sister, can you give me a little discount?" In an instant my tiny stall was surrounded. I worked quickly, offering samples and answering eagerly. "Don't worry, it's clean. All top-quality ingredients. In this cool weather, it'll last a good 2 weeks." "Sister, I really can't make it cheaper. This takes a lot of work." In just over 10 minutes, every jar I had brought was sold out. My hands trembled as I counted the bills, heart pounding with excitement. 13.5 yuan in total. After subtracting costs, nearly 8 yuan profit. In a time when the average monthly wage of a worker was only 3 or 4 yuan, this was a fortune. My hands shook so hard I almost dropped the money. I had done it. I could truly support Lily on my own now. Carefully tucking the money into my pocket, I began to pack up, ready to head home, when a sharp female voice rang out behind me. "Oh, I thought it was someone important. Isn't this the ex-wife of Captain Ethan? Got dumped and now reduced to setting up a stall on the street?" That voice. I instantly turned around. Not far away, Samantha was clinging to the arm of a strange man, her face full of mockery and smugness as she looked at me. Her voice was sharp, bitter, and venomous. If this had been my past life, I would have burned with shame at her words, wishing I could crawl into a hole to hide. But now I slowly straightened up, brushed the dust from my hands, and looked her in the face. I even allowed myself a faint smile. "Comrade Samantha, you've gotten 2 things wrong." My calmness caught her off guard. The smug smile froze on her lips for a moment. "First," I said, raising one finger, my voice carrying clearly, "I am no longer Captain Ethan's wife. We are divorced. My name is Emily." I deliberately emphasized the word divorced. The people lingering nearby erupted in whispers of surprise. "The captain divorced? That's shocking." Samantha's face immediately soured. "Second," I continued, lowering my hand and letting my gaze fall on the man she was holding on to. His slick-back hair and shifty eyes made it obvious what kind of person he was. Not a decent one. "I earn clean money with my own hands to support my daughter. That's not disgrace. It's ability." I paused, my smile deepening though my eyes were cold. "At least I know where to stop. Unlike some people, scheming for every scrap of something that was never theirs to begin with. The words were light, but they struck hard. Samantha's face went pale, then flushed red. She looked around in panic, unable to find a place to hide her embarrassment. She hadn't expected that in just a few days. The meek, cowering Emily she once trampled on had turned sharp and unyielding. She wanted to argue back, but couldn't. Everything I said was true. The gazes of those around us shifted. They looked at me, then at Samantha, and it was plain in their eyes who deserved respect and who deserved scorn. Samantha trembled all over, pointing a finger at me, too choked up to speak. I didn't bother with her anymore. Instead, I turned my eyes deliberately to the man at her side and said with feigned curiosity, "Comrade Samantha, weren't you always walking with, or should I say, arm in arm with, Captain Ethan? This comrade here looks unfamiliar. Aren't you going to introduce him?" "Shut up," Samantha shrieked like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. Panic filled her face. She had come here today hoping to see me miserable, to mock me after Ethan had cast me aside. She wanted to watch me fall into despair. I didn't know what exactly was going on between her and Ethan, but judging by her reaction, it was clear she didn't want him to know this man existed. That was enough for me. I wanted her to live in unease. "Emily, just you wait," Samantha spat venomously, then dragged the man into the crowd and fled. Her retreating figure was so pitiful it was almost laughable. Watching her run away in disgrace filled me with deep satisfaction. At that moment, the worker who had first bought chili sauce from me stepped forward, snorting in disgust. "What nonsense! Someone as cheap as that dares to criticize others?" "Emily, don't mind her. I support you. This sauce is delicious. Will you be back tomorrow?" "Yes, we'll come again," several other workers chimed in. "We'll tell our friends in the factory, too." Warmth spread through my chest. Thank you, everyone. I'll definitely come tomorrow," I said, bowing my head in genuine gratitude. Such simple kindness was more precious than anything. I packed up my things and pedaled home. The setting sun stretched my shadow long across the ground. I had never felt the road home so firm, so certain beneath my feet. But as I turned into the narrow alley leading to my house, my heart sank. Parked at the entrance of the alley was a familiar military jeep. Standing beside it was the one person I least wanted to see at that moment, Ethan. What was he doing here? Was he planning to pull something again? My chest tightened and suddenly the bicycle beneath me felt as heavy as lead. I gripped the brakes tightly and stopped a few meters away. Between us stretched a hazy distance, shrouded in the dim glow of the setting sun. Ethan didn't move. He only stood there, staring at me. His eyes were complicated now, not just angry or surprised like before. There was something else in them, something weary, troubled. But whatever it was, I no longer cared to decipher it. Finally, he spoke. "Earlier you went to the state-owned textile factory." His voice was hoarse. I stiffened. "How did he know?" I didn't answer. Instead, I asked coldly, "Captain Ethan, did you wait here just to ask me that?" His reply came with the tone of a command, one that allowed no refusal. I laughed. "Yes, I went there. I sold chili sauce to earn money to raise my daughter. Do you have any more orders you'd like to give me?" I thought he would explode, scold me for shaming him. But no, he only stood in silence, staring. After a long time, he pulled a cigarette from his pocket, lit it, and drew in a deep breath. In the haze of smoke, his face was dark and unreadable. "Emily," he finally said, his voice rougher, "someone in the unit reported me and Samantha." So he admitted it at last. I had already known, but hearing it from his own mouth still sent a chill slicing through my chest. His eyes narrowed, searching me. "The letter was anonymous, but it was sent right after we divorced. Do you know who did it?" He suspected me. I met his gaze calmly, without flinching. "I don't know. Maybe someone who couldn't stomach your filth anymore, that's all." He stared at me for a long time, as if trying to catch a crack in my composure. But I was too calm. He crushed out the cigarette and stepped closer. The reek of smoke and the icy aura around him made me instinctively step back, tightening my grip on the bicycle's handlebars. "Emily, you have to help me." He said it as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I froze, then almost laughed aloud. "Help you?" I asked, my voice dripping with scorn. "I've thought this through," he said, deadly serious. "This matter could ruin everything. The organization has already called me in. If I can't handle it well, my entire career could end. So what? My tone was cold. Whether your career collapses or not, what does that have to do with me? His face flushed red with anger. Emily, we were husband and wife. Do you have to be this heartless? I laughed, but tears stung my eyes. My laughter was filled with bitterness, heavy with mockery. Ethan, when you forced me into a fake divorce for Samantha's sake, did you remember you had a wife? When you tossed me and my daughter into a damp storage room like trash, did you think of husband and wife? And now, when your career is in jeopardy, suddenly you remember me? His face turned red, then green, unable to withstand my accusations. I need you, he finally forced out, his words ugly with desperation. I need you to tell the organization we acted in a moment of impulse, that we're planning to remarry. As long as you say that, they'll believe the accusations aren't credible. I stood in silence, listening to this man once again speak such shameless, selfish words. At last, I fully understood what I was in his eyes. I had never been a person in his eyes. Before, I was just a tool for him to keep up appearances. Now, I was nothing more than a tool for him to escape trouble. When the last glimmer of hope inside me finally went out, I felt utterly calm. I looked at him and spoke each word clearly. Ethan, listen carefully. First, I will not help you. Whether your career lives or dies has nothing to do with me. Second, there is absolutely no possibility left between us. You should let go of that hope. Third, if you dare disturb me again, I won't hesitate to go straight to the organization and personally confirm that I was the one who wrote that letter of accusation. With that, I didn't even bother to look at his face, twisted in shock and fury. I pressed hard on the pedals and shot past him on my bicycle. This time, I didn't look back. I only heard behind me a strangled roar, torn from the depths of despair, filled with anger, resentment, and above all, a feeling he had likely never experienced in his life. Regret. Too late. The moment I entered my little courtyard and bolted the gate, all my strength seemed to drain away. I leaned against the cold wooden door, my back chilled, but my heart pounding wildly in my chest. Over and over, I replayed Ethan's expression in my mind. From shock to humiliation to despair, there was no pleasure in it, only emptiness, a cold void, pressing on my chest. The man I had once loved to my very bones, whom I had admired for half a lifetime, I finally saw through him. This was all he was. How laughable, how pitiful. That night, I slept more soundly than ever before. The next morning, I no longer thought of Ethan. His world was collapsing. Mine was only just beginning. Carefully, I laid out yesterday's earnings on the table, each small bill like a medal for my first step toward independence. I didn't stash the money away. The best investment was in myself. I went back to the market. This time, I bought 3 times more ingredients than before. I even gritted my teeth and purchased a much larger pot and 50 brand new glass jars. I also bought a fresh piece of cloth, planning to make a small sign with 3 simple words: Emily's chili sauce. Clear, simple. It was mine. A new beginning. The process of cooking was just as exhausting, but watching the pot of scarlet sauce bubbling and smelling its fragrance fill the courtyard gave me new strength. That afternoon, I returned once again to the gates of the state-owned textile factory. This time, the scene was completely different. I hadn't even finished setting up when the worker who had bought my sauce the day before came beaming, dragging along 7 or 8 of her colleagues. "Comrade Emily, finally you're here. We've been waiting for you." That's right. Last night I took the sauce home, and my husband devoured 3 bowls of noodles with it. "Quick, give me 2 jars. My mother asked me to buy one for her too." Before I could even hand out samples with buns, the 50 jars I had brought were already snapped up by the crowd. "Everyone, don't rush. There's enough for each of you." I was overwhelmed by the sudden enthusiasm, my hands clumsy, barely able to keep up. I never imagined happiness could come so quickly, so fiercely. In less than half an hour, everything I had brought was sold out again. Counting the money, my hands shook even more than yesterday. Over 50 yuan. Nearly the equivalent of more than half of Ethan's monthly salary. I stared at the warm bills in my hands, tears brimming in my eyes. So this is what it meant, to rely on myself. I really could live this well. "Comrade, wait a moment." Just as I was about to pack up and head home, a middle-aged man in cotter clothes approached, smiling. Behind him stood two men in white coats, clearly staff from the factory cafeteria. "May I ask who you are?" I asked, a little bewildered. "I'm Chairman Lee, head of the factory union." His smile was warm. "I heard from the comrades in the cafeteria that your chili sauce is very popular with the workers." I smiled modestly. "It's just a little skill I taught myself. I'm already grateful that everyone supports me." A little skill that wins praise from the entire factory is real ability. Chairman Lee's eyes held open admiration. Then he got straight to the point. "Comrade Emily, I'm here today to discuss something with you. Cooperation." "Cooperation?" I was stunned. "That's right." He gestured toward the cafeteria staff behind him. "Our factory cafeteria serves thousands of meals every day. We'd like to purchase your chili sauce on a long-term basis to use as a condiment for the workers' meals." In my head, it was as if fireworks exploded. It was like a meat pie falling straight from the sky into my lap. To supply the one state-owned textile factory cafeteria meant a large, stable order. It meant that Emily's chili sauce had a foundation I wouldn't have dared dream of. "Of course, we won't let you suffer a loss," Chairman Lee continued. "We can sign an official supply contract, with pricing based on the retail rate you sold it today. What do you think?" My heart pounded wildly. Before my eyes, I could almost see a golden road stretching out, but alongside that brilliance came crushing pressure. Supplying thousands of people with nothing but my small courtyard, one pot, and a tiny kitchen was impossible. I would need a larger space, more help, stricter production methods. Could I really do it? I knew this was the biggest crossroads of my life. If I stepped back, I could continue selling small amounts, living quietly. But if I stepped forward, I would enter a bigger world, one full of risks, but also overflowing with opportunity. I gripped the warm stack of bills in my hand and drew a deep breath. Then I looked Chairman Lee straight in the eye. "Thank you for your trust. I accept this cooperation." The moment I finished, Chairman Lee's face broke into a broad smile of approval. He extended his hand. "Comrade Emily, I look forward to working with you. On behalf of the #1 state-owned textile factory, welcome aboard." I reached out and clasped his hand firmly. Happy cooperation. On the way home, my heart was both aflame and turbulent. The fire was joy at my success, the expectation of the future. The waves were clarity, the sober awareness of reality. The factory's order was the opportunity I had dreamed of, but it was also a boulder pressing on my shoulders. With my tiny courtyard and single pot, even without sleep or rest, I could never supply thousands. I needed a bigger place, a space that could truly be called a workshop. But where could I find one? As I thought and thought, one figure appeared in my mind. Mark Harris, Director Harris of the Neighborhood Committee. He was my benefactor, the only person in this city I could truly turn to, and someone with real connections. The next day, I brought 2 of my best packaged jars of chili sauce and knocked on the door of the neighborhood office. After hearing why I came and about the contract I had just signed with the state-owned factory, Director Harris was so stunned his mouth hung open for a long time before he could close it. His eyes, when they finally focused on me, were full of amazement and deep emotion. "Comrade Emily, you've made me see you in a whole new light," Director Harris said with genuine admiration. "You've got ambition, and you've got ability." He paced back and forth, smoking, then suddenly slapped his thigh. "There actually is a place," he said. "Under the name of the Neighborhood Committee, there's an old abandoned sauce workshop. Behind it is a fairly large, empty yard. The space is big, and it already has several brick stoves. It's just been left unused for years and needs cleaning up. As for rent, don't worry, I'll make sure you get the lowest rate possible." He thumped his chest in assurance. My heart pounded as if that place had been prepared just for me. He led me there, and the yard was even bigger than I had imagined, and more desolate. Weeds grew as tall as a person, and the walls were covered with moss. But the moment I saw those large brick stoves, my eyes lit up. Once cleaned, my production capacity could increase tenfold. "Well?" Director Harris asked. "It's perfect." I couldn't hide my excitement. "This is the place, Director Harris." I was already calculating how to clear the yard when a cold, familiar voice cut through the air behind me. "Emily." That voice, I would recognize it even in ashes. I spun around and saw Ethan standing right at the gate. It had only been a few days, but he looked like a different man. Stubble darkened his chin, his once crisp uniform hung loose and wrinkled. He looked disheveled, weary, his frame thinner, his eyes sunken and bloodshot. His gaze swept across the deserted yard and finally settled on my face, still glowing with excitement. "You're planning to make chili sauce here?" His voice was hoarse, tinged with a bitterness he himself didn't seem to realize. Perhaps he couldn't believe that the woman who had once orbited only around him now dared build a career from ruins on her own. I ignored him and turned to Director Harris. "Director, let's go back and complete the paperwork." "Wait." Ethan's voice stopped me. He stepped forward, blocking my path. Director Harris instinctively moved to shield me, his stance alert. "I heard about what happened at the state-owned factory," Ethan said, his eyes a swirl of shock, bitterness, and perhaps even a trace of jealousy. "You've done well." His belated hollow praise stirred nothing in me. "I heard you're short on help," he added, forcing a stiff smile, almost pleading. "I can help you. I can call some of my old army buddies. They're strong and hardworking." I looked at him, the man who had once been so arrogant, so proud, now standing before me in a way I had never seen, never thought I would ever see. He was trying to win my favor, to patch over a chasm that could never be filled with a few scraps of belated effort. "Too bad," I cut him off coldly. "No need. Captain Ethan, my business is only just beginning. This small temple can't hold a Buddha as big as you. And more importantly, my work is clean. I don't want, or need, anything tainted." Ethan's face turned as white as paper. 2 years later. "Director Emily, the orders from the Southern Cooperative have doubled again. Our production might not keep up." "Director Emily, the reporters are here. They want to do a special feature on Emily's chili sauce." I stood in my bright, spotless office, looking down at the workshop below. On the factory floor, workers in spotless white uniforms bustled along the modern production line. The air was filled with the sweet, spicy fragrance I knew so well, a scent that gave me peace of mind. Emily's chili sauce had grown from a little street stall into a well-known local brand. We had our own factory, dozens of workers, and our products were shipped to cities all around. "Mom!" Lily came running in, her hair tied into two playful tails like little goat horns bouncing like butterfly wings. She was taller now, rounder, her cheeks rosy with health, her smile as bright as ever. I hugged my daughter and gazed out the window at the land that held my hard-won career. A strange calm filled me. For 2 years I'd been so busy I barely had time to think of the past. Ethan. That name had long stopped crossing my mind. I'd heard he was eventually disciplined by the unit, demoted, and sent to some remote posting. As for Samantha, once Ethan fell, she quickly married a Hong Kong businessman and disappeared from sight. Their world no longer had anything to do with mine. Until that one afternoon. I was preparing to leave work when my secretary knocked on the door, her expression uneasy. "Director Emily, there's someone outside asking for you. He said he's an old acquaintance." My heart skipped a beat. I walked to the factory gate. Under the glow of the setting sun stood a lonely figure. He wore a faded blue worker's uniform and a pair of fraying canvas shoes caked with dust. He turned, revealing a face lined with wrinkles carved by time and hardship. Ethan. He was no longer the proud soldier of the past, but just an ordinary middle-aged man. His eyes met mine, heavy with regret and pain that could never be erased. "I'm back," he rasped. "I just wanted to see you and see Lily. How is she?" "We're doing very well," I replied coolly, my voice polite but distant. He forced a smile, one uglier than tears. "Emily, I've heard about everything you've accomplished. You're even greater than I ever imagined. Hundreds, thousands of times greater." His eyes grew red. "I'm sorry." The words fell from his mouth like lead, far too late. "Emily, I was blind, a fool. I threw away the most precious thing in my life with my own hands." His voice cracked. A man in his 40s was crying in front of me like a child. "I regret it, Emily. Not a day has passed in these 2 years that I haven't regretted it. I miss you so much it drives me mad. I miss Lily so much it tears my heart apart. I even went to find Samantha and slapped her. Not because she deceived me, but because she made me realize how stupid I was. Emily, can you forgive me? Can we remarry? I don't need anything else. I'll work like a beast of burden for you, guard the gate if I must. Just let me be with you and Lily." He begged me, low and pitiful. The scene was familiar, except our roles had completely reversed. I looked at him quietly, but there was no hatred left, no love either, not even pity, only the sense that the man before me was a stranger. Ethan, I said evenly, I accept your apology. A faint spark of hope flickered in his eyes, but it's too late. That spark died instantly. I don't need anyone to be my beast of burden. I don't need a gatekeeper. My factory has security, my home has protection. Lily and I, we're enough. I pointed into the distance where Mark Harris was holding Lily's hand, laughing with her as brightly as the sun. Director Harris is now the factory's advisor. He was also the man Lily trusted most, the one she was closest to. You see, I said evenly, we're living very well. Without you, we're living even better. As for forgiveness, I shook my head. I don't forgive you. I've only released myself. I don't hate you anymore, because you're not worth even a shred more of my feelings. I turned away and walked toward my daughter, toward the future ahead of us, bathed in the soft golden glow of the setting sun. I didn't look back. After hearing Emily's story, I understood something. Sometimes the bravest thing a woman can do isn't forgiveness. It's letting go, so she can keep on living. Not for anyone else, but for herself. Emily had once loved, endured pain, and tolerated humiliation until her heart was shattered. But when life gave her a second chance, she didn't choose hatred, she didn't beg. She chose freedom. She started again from nothing, from a tiny street stall selling chili sauce. She built a brand in her own name, not to prove herself to anyone, but to raise her daughter with her own hands, in dignity and peace. She didn't forgive the man who betrayed her. But she no longer hated him either, because forgiveness wasn't the point. Releasing herself was. Amid gossip, scrutiny, and even desperate pleas that came too late, she held her head high. Because she knew happiness doesn't come from being chosen by someone else. It comes from choosing how to live for herself. A little house, a grapevine trellis at the porch, the bright laughter of her daughter, that was the gentlest reward for a heart once broken, but never defeated. This wasn't just a love story, this was a declaration of freedom. For women, for anyone who has ever been hurt and is learning to walk forward on their own 2 feet.